Hello everyone, this video is on equality on the spiritual path. This is extremely important so that we can walk around in the kingdom and feel connected to everyone, because everyone is an extension of ourself, and whatever happens to another person affects us, even though we might think that people are separate. The personality might perceive people as being below or above us. That's not actually the case. You can't tell who's enlightened and who's not enlightened when you walk around in the kingdom, because a lot of people just come in and their role is to dissolve what other people are not able to dissolve. And so there are a lot of altruistic souls out there that have taken a body to dissolve things in humanity. And that can look like a drug addict, that can look like a prostitute, that can look like a homeless person. The personality is not attached to the enlightenment. The personality is attached to a unique expression of stress mixed with karma, collective karma, by the way, mixed with a unique kind of quirky design. But the sin or the merit of anyone, it doesn't matter in a transcendental realm. And so when we have a real deep understanding of this, we can say thank you to everyone we meet in the kingdom. Thank you to the homeless person for struggling and extricating themselves out of a struggle daily, staying sane. And that intelligence that keeps them in the body, even though their suffering is shared with everyone else. So we can say, thank you for struggling. Thank you for transmuting all of those emotions that you feel, whether it's shame, whether it's horror, whether it's confusion, whatever it might be. Thank you for doing that for humanity. And so it's a transmutation, it's a collective sharing of stress. Everything is shared, everything's interconnected. So thank you to the homeless person. Thank you to the prostitute. Thank you to the man or woman that comes into a body and lives the commodification, the collective commodification that happens due to stress. A lot of people, they feel like they need to make other people products that they can consume so that they can stay in control, or they feel like they're not enough, or that they're dirty. Personality plays a lot of tricks, and there's so many ways people can fall into that path. But whoever out there who is a prostitute or a sex worker, you may not know why you're on that path, but it is a tantric transmutation path. And so there's certain collective energies that are running through humanity that need to be lived, that need to be transmuted, that the prostitute is doing. And so we shouldn't finger wag, we shouldn't shame. We don't know why a higher being chose to do that. And yes, some of the choices can be due to stress, can be due to ignorance, can be due to not understanding the karmic implications. But what if it was an actual choice? What if a higher being came into that body and wanted to become a burlesque of all of the trauma that exists in that society? and the way they express is through being a prostitute or a sex worker. We don't know, we can't unpick it all. We don't know why people are the way they are. And so if we let go of trying to figure out why are they doing this, it must be because they're less evolved or they're stupid or they're ignorant. If we let go of that and just know that it's happening, and if something is happening, it's happening perhaps for a reason. Things happen for reasons that the intellect, that the personality cannot always figure out. You don't know the answers to questions through your personality. You don't know the answers to questions through your intellect. You have to move beyond the personality. You have to move beyond the intellect. You have to move beyond science. You have to transcend, and transcend means move beyond. You have to move beyond trying to figure things out in a form realm into a non-form realm. And then the answers will arise from that space. And so some people, they look to books, they look to scriptures, they look to teachers, and they absorb that information and then they regurgitate it as if it's the truth. But there is a warning sign when one regurgitates what has been told to you without a direct experience. The person that's teaching you, hopefully, has had a direct experience. The person or the being that has transcribed or cognized the ancient literature, the spiritual literature, hopefully, fingers crossed, has had a direct experience, and then you're trusting that that secondhand information is the truth. But on this spiritual path, we have to become self-referral. We have to run any secondhand information through ourself because it's a self-realization. It's not a secondhand realization. And the only way we can have a self-realization is if we transcend form, the form space, enter a formless space, a still space, and in the stillness, cognize the truth. And the truth that exists in the stillness is the same truth that everybody knows to be true. So, finding a way to allow the mind to surrender, to allow the personality to surrender, to allow the intellect to let go, and a still intelligence to rise up and communicate to us non-verbally, intuitively, so that we can have discrimination. We can know whether the information we receive that is secondhand is true or false. And even when we're moving on the spiritual path, there are stages to our spiritual evolution. There is a stage where we transcend, we move beyond the body, but we still perceive ourselves as separate. Then there is a stage beyond that where we transcend, move beyond the body, perceive ourselves as separate, but then transcend even further and get into a unified perspective. And the unified perspective is the ultimate truth. And so when you're at a stage below where you still perceive yourself as separate, then the truth's not going to be absolutely accurate. So the only truth exists at a unity consciousness level. And we all are, before we take a body, unified. But we agree to forget that unity when we take a body just because the stress hits the system. And when the stress hits the system, there can be some forgetting temporarily. Because we might have agreed to be a prostitute, we might have agreed to be homeless, we might have pre-agreed to live those lives for our soul journey or for the ability to transmute collective stress on certain subjects. Equality exists in unity. There can be no inequality in unity. And this equality is towards all beings. There's no being that is higher than another being, even though the personality would like there to be a hierarchy to boost an ego. Once the ego's destroyed, there's no hierarchy. Sorry, you can't get a high from thinking you're better than somebody else anymore. But what you trade for ego, you get something spectacular, which is so much better than that. Connection to all beings for all time. And there's nothing better than feeling connected to all beings for all time. All beings, worms, pigs, cows, insects, frogs, everything. A worm, how can a worm be equal to man? How can an insect be equal to man? The part of you that finds there's a cognitive dissonance there, like worm man, insect man, is the ego. It loves to chop things up, to say this is better than that, this is higher than that, this is more useful than that. There are beings that are so altruistic that they come in knowing that they're going to be perceived as powerless, knowing that they're going to be consumed and destroyed and made into the cells of other beings, knowing that and doing that anyway. What a high being. Maybe the highest being wants to experience what it's like being being a worm, having no sight, being in the dark, being consumed by a bird that then flies through the sky and then being destroyed and made into a bird's body. So know that when those choppers come out, when you want to chop things up, like, dislike, high, low, all of that chopping, it's just ignorance. It's just stress. It's just temporary. Because once you become connected to who you truly are, it all goes away. But we can get a high, like I said, the personality can get a high, thinking it's kind of special. And we are special because no worm is ever going to be the same as another worm. Something never gets repeated. And that's why life is so awe-inspiring and spectacular, because there's never going to be the same worm, there's never going to be the same you, there's never going to be the same cat. And my little cat is here. This is Octoby Bear, a little rescue. And if you look into the eyes of Octoby Bear, it's the same consciousness. It's the same consciousness. We have the same consciousness. Even though it might be cat consciousness, it's still the same consciousness. Oh, she's playing. She's a little kitten. But all beings deserve respect. All beings are here to help other beings, whether it's being food, whether it's being a spiritual guide, like Octoby Bear is come to help my heart space and to make my life easier and to connect with me, or whether it's just to charge up the planet, because some animals are in a permanent meditative state. Everything's serving, everything embodies to help everything else. And this is really important to know. Nothing takes a body unless it wants to help. And this connects back to the prostitute. This connects back to the homeless person. They're there to help. We don't fully understand how that helps. Well, the intellect doesn't fully understand how that helps, but knowing that everything that's embodies is embodied for a purpose, whether it's to teach us a lesson, whether it's to dissolve collective stress, whether it's to be of service, so many reasons. Nothing gets the privilege of a lived experience if it's not a higher being that is going to lead to evolution. Nothing's happening accidentally. Nothing's a mistake. Nature doesn't make mistakes. And that can be very confusing sometimes when there's terrible things that happen. But you have to move beyond the intellect. We have to move beyond what we think we know to understand why that is. So equality, equality, equality. And I pray that no matter where we are on our spiritual path, we can feel connected to all beings and let go of the desire to feel superior or the desire to perceive ourselves as inferior, so that we can connect to a truth that opens our heart space for all beings, and so we can live happy, connected lives.